So with that, because Barb's going to do our opening prayer, it's just my honor tonight to present to you a very lifelong friend, Barb Schroeder. She's been at Redeemer before. She's spoken to us on gratitude. In fact, Barb's presented internationally on gratitude. She was at Mayo as a nurse for 40 years, over 40 years. And
Counting.
yeah, don't tell on you. She started in cardiac surgery with open heart surgery patients. Then she went to cardiology and exercise testing, and then to nursing education. And the last 2 decades of her career, she was a clinical nurse specialist, first for oncology patients and their families, and then last for solid organ transplant patients and their families. So now she's been retired a few years, and she's very active in her congregation at First Methodist Evangel United First Methodist on Broadway, in Rochester. And she's created so many wonderful grief support groups and educational and fun groups for her congregation. Her newest topic is anxiety, for which she has a wealth of information for us. And I'll just say this once more. I sent everybody the handouts today by email. There are several here this evening. Barb has them embedded in her presentation. And if any of you would like any more of them after, just let me know and I'll send them to you again or get you hard copies. Okay, with that, my dear friend Barb Schroeder.
Well, welcome. And if you had met me last August, I wouldn't be wearing my cap. It's not that I didn't have time to curl my hair today. It's actually I lost my hair. In September, I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, stage 4, which isn't a good stage to get. And if you're not praying for me now, I don't know how you didn't get on one of my prayer chains, because I think most of Rochester praying for me. And I have to tell you, what is beautiful about that is most days I'm very calm. I'm not anxious. I really believe that God is watching over me. And so this talk hopefully will help find a place for you to find a calm in whatever situation you're dealing with. So, and what's really sad is when I lost my hair 2 weeks after I started chemo, and I went into my bathroom and I go, oh geez, I don't think I need my comb and brush anymore. Of course, there was nothing up there. And then I went into my bathroom and there's my curling iron. And I said, I am getting rid of you, because I'd burn my scalp if I tried to curl those little hairs. So having worked in oncology and talking to a lot of people about some of the issues I experienced, I have to say they help guide me to doing some good things for myself, but also has made me sad that I've learned so much that I could share with patients. So I share when I can, and I have a column in our newsletter about cancer resources, and I'm doing what I can. We have about 7 people in our church with cancer, and we have a wonderful book, devotional called 50 Days of Hope on Your Journey with Cancer. And I think, Kathy, I gave you one, didn't I?
Yes.
So if somebody's interested, I think they're
we'll put that here in the library.
Yeah, they're $11.99, and you can get them from Christian Book. And I purchased them for our pastor, so when he makes home calls, he can give the books. And I tell you, every page is just spot on with what I and other people are going through. But enough about cancer. So you think, oh yeah, that's why she's been anxious. Well, no, it isn't. Well, let's go ahead. And one of the things I think about when I think about anxiety is that if you don't find ways to manage it, it's going to manage you. And so part of our blessings tonight is we're going to talk about how to make sure anxiety doesn't move into panic attacks, how it doesn't consume your day and your night, and that you really feel like you're in control of it, even if it only happens once a year, every other year, or you're having to deal with it more frequently. So I really want to say thank you for coming. One of the things that is really the hallmark of managing anxiety is deep breathing, and that is breathing from your belly, not your chest. And so what we do is we breathe in on a count of 3, and we breathe out slowly on a count of 5. So this slide just shows you kind of that process. And what we're going to do now is do it together. So we're going to hold our hands on our stomach, and we're going to breathe in on a count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Hold it and breathe out on a count of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's do that again. Breathe in, hold it, and breathe out. On the last time I did this presentation, someone asked a very good question, and that was, why do you breathe in through your nose? And the purpose of that is to warm your breath so that you don't end up coughing. So you always breathe in through your nose, and you always breathe out through your mouth. Some people learn how to breathe in on 4, hold it for 7, breathe out for 5. There's a lot of different ways of doing this, but I find this to be the easiest when you're first starting to learn deep breathing. Well, let's do a prayer. Dear Lord, you spoke to storms. Would you speak to ours? You calmed the hearts of the apostles. Would you calm the chaos within each of us? You told them to fear not. Say the same to us. We are weary from our worry, battered and belittled by the gales of life. O Prince of Peace, bequeath to us a spirit of calm. Turn a new leaf into our lives. Quench anxiety, stir courage. Let us know less fret and more faith. Amen. And this is something my brother always says to me: let your faith be greater than your fears. So whenever he says, hi, Barb, how are you? How's your faith? I always say, bigger than my fears. And it's a nice verse. This is my new favorite author. His name is Max Lucao. He has written so many books. I get a daily email from him with a uplifting Bible verse and a few statements to read. His book, Anxious for Nothing, actually, I started reading during the pandemic, and we were going to do a support group on Anxious for Nothing, and ended up have to do most of it online, which when you're dealing with anxiety, sometimes the support of another person in person is helpful. But anyway, you might go and look him up as an author, and you'll be amazed. He's also written some very good children's books for those of you who have grandkids or school-age kids. He has been featured in devotionals and songs and greeting cards. He's highly popular, and he's a leading preacher and teacher of a pastor at Oak Hills Church in San Antonio, Texas. His wife is Denalyn, and they have 3 daughters and 2 grandkids. And that's his website. It's very easy, maxlucao.com. Well, this is the cover of one of his books that also has a short study going with it, and it's called Anxious for Nothing, and it goes like this. Does the uncertainty and chaos of life keep you up at night? Is irrational anxiety your constant companion? Let God help you win the war on worry and receive the lasting peace of Christ. Well, you know, we all encounter anxiety, but we don't have to let worry and fear control our lives. Anxious for Nothing, from the best-selling author Max Lucao, provides a roadmap for battling with and healing from anxiety. Anxious for Nothing invites readers to delve into Philippians 4, 6-7, the most highlighted passage on the book of this planet, according to Amazon. So do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and also your minds. And thank you for this book, Max. It has been a lifesaver for many. Well, for any of you who need contact hours, I grew up as a nurse and a nurse educator, so of course I'm going to give you contact hours, and you can get at least 1 contact hour for this talk if you need it. So what I'm going to do is review the incidence and prevalence of anxiety in the United States. We're going to look at what are some of the causes, the different forms of anxiety. We're going to describe symptoms. We're going to review Bible verses to help you cope with anxiety. And the bigger thing as I go through this tonight is I want you to start thinking about how your church can help support those who are dealing with anxiety. And then I have a pretty robust reference list or resource list for you if you're looking for books. So, anxiety at a glance. Anxiety disorders are the most common mental illness in the United States, and it affects over 40 million adults, or 19.1% of our population. Generalized anxiety disorder, also known as GAD, is the most common of the anxiety disorders in the United States. It has about 6.8 million adults. Young people are more likely to experience symptoms of anxiety than older adults, with nearly 50% of those between the ages of 18 and 24. And they also are reporting depressive disorders and anxiety. Women are more than twice as likely than men to experience an anxiety disorder. And anxiety disorders are often very treatable, but more than 60% of people do not seek treatment for it. Now, the thing I want you to know, even though it is more than twice as likely to be seen in women, men need to know about it and to support their loved ones who may be experiencing it. And that's not to say that men don't have anxiety disorders also. According to the US Census, about a third of adults, that's 32%, reported anxiety and depression symptoms in 2023. Nearly half of these adults were between the ages of 18 and 24. And I would say, as we look at our church, I'm wondering what our youth groups are doing to talk about anxiety and depression with our youth and our young adults. It's something that I have shared with our pastor to look at, making sure we bring this topic forward. And as we look at age groups, 38% were between the ages of 25 and 49, and 29% were between the ages of 50 and 64. 20% were above 65. An estimated 31% of US adults experience an anxiety at some point in their lives. 6.8 million adults, or 3% of the US population, is affected by GAD, and only 43% receive treatment. And we'll talk about treatment a little bit more detail as we get going here. I think I want you to understand that according to the National Institute of Mental Health, we need to be ever vigilant of anxiety, because one of the things that can happen is they can then progress into panic disorders. And I'll show you the pictures of the different disorders. Well, a little bit about anxiety and a little bit about stress. If I were to ask you to hold a 16-ounce bottle of water in your hand and just hold it there, actually even 4 ounces, 8 or 16, really the weight doesn't matter. It depends on how long you hold it. If you hold it for a minute, that's really not a problem, is it? If I hold that glass of water, that bottle of water, for a day, or for an hour, I'll have an ache in my arm. And if I try to hold it there all day, I'm going to be needing help. And that's the way with stress in our lives. If we carry our burdens all the time, sooner or later, as the burdens become increasingly heavy, we are going to need support. We won't be able to carry on. And if we put it down for a while and rest before holding it again, we can then be refreshed and hold on to our burdens. But just like you can't hold on to a bottle of water for an hour or a day, our burdens can have that same effect of us. So God will help you when you feel anxious. The National Institute of Mental Health says anxiety disorders are reaching epidemic proportions. Each year, nearly 50 million Americans will feel the effect of a panic attack or phobia or other anxiety disorders. Anxiety disorders are the #1 mental health problem among women, are second only to alcohol and drugs and abuse in men. The USA is now the most anxious nation in the world. The average child today exhibits the same level of anxiety as the average psychiatrist patient in the 1950s. Think about that. The average child today exhibits the same level of anxiety as the average psychiatric patient in the 1950s. Wow. Have you talked to your grandkids and your kids and your siblings about anxiety? There's a lot of data here to say they may need the information just as much as you do. Well, what is the cause of our anxiety? I think change is a big one because life is changing at a very rapid speed. Things like technology, the internet, global warnings, nuclear war, and terrorist attacks. We also move faster than ever before. Think about this. I like a lot of cowboy shows with my husband, so Wagon Train is one of my favorites. Our ancestors only traveled as far as their horses could take them. Today, we jet through time zones as if they were neighboring streets. What about personal challenges, foreclosures, fighting cancer, or other challenging diseases, going through a divorce, bankruptcy, going out of business, or dealing with drugs and alcohol? There are so many things that can be changing in our lives that can precipitate anxiety. So we know this. The presence of anxiety is unavoidable, but the prison of anxiety is optional. Let me read that to you again. The presence of anxiety in our life is unavoidable, but the prison of anxiety is optional. God gave us a daily reminder to live with every day fearlessly. Did you know the words "do not be afraid" is written in the Bible 365 times? That's once for every day of the year. One of the most common verses you will hear recited is Philippians 4:6. Be anxious for nothing. It doesn't say don't be anxious in the fall or when you're on vacation. It says be anxious for nothing each and every day. This can be hard to fathom or believe when you're going through something. And every morning when I do my devotions, I've got 2 really good books that are my devotionals. That's when I start my deep breathing in the morning. Sometimes I'll even do it in bed before I get out of bed. It's just to breathe in through my nose and out from my mouth. And a lot of times I'll say, breathe in my blessings, breathe out my stress. So I'm just not breathing. I'm breathing in my blessings and I can just feel them. And I can feel my stress go as I say those words to myself. Well, on this picture, you'll see stress on the left, anxiety disorder on the right. And you'll see in the middle some of the symptoms that are common between the two of them. Fatigue is common with stress, and it's common with an anxiety disorder. Insomnia, most people with anxiety have a hard time sleeping at night. They may have irritability, muscle tension, elevated blood pressure, difficulties concentrating, increased heart rate, excessive worry, heartaches, and chest pain. And you'll see on the left anger and on the right anxiety. One of the things that I think as you look at anxiety is that you carry with you this ongoing dread, you're short of breath, you possibly can move into a panic attack. You have intense worry. You have GI issues. You have a cough. A lot of people itch. They have hives and gas. And for some, there may be only certain foods. I know when I was going through some issues with anxiety, I could eat graham crackers and bananas. That was about it. So God's going to help you when you feel anxious. Did you know anxiety isn't a sin? It's really just an emotion. Is your heart weighed down with worry? Look for these signals. Are you laughing less than you once did? Do you see problems in every promise? Do you assume something bad is going to happen? Is your cup half empty? And what I say about that is you can always refill your cup. Do you downplay good news? Do you magnify the negative and dismiss the positive? If this sounds like you, there is a friend you need to meet, and his name is Jesus. So here are the main forms of anxiety. Generalized anxiety disorder. This is where you have symptoms like butterflies in your stomach, you're nauseated, you might have some shortness of breath, you might have some swallowing issues, you might notice that your heart is racing and that you sweat. And one of the things about anxiety is that it can progress to a panic attack, where suddenly you'll have a sense of severe physical and emotional distress. People may feel as if they cannot breathe or that they're having a heart attack. And these episodes usually last just a few minutes. Now, I didn't get married till I was 45, and my husband was from Blaine and I was from Rochester, and we moved to Red Wing so the two younger boys could go to the Covenant Church to finish up their confirmation. And so this is like October. I've just been married about 3 months. And our son, who was in 9th grade, he had a choir concert. So one of his aunts came down from Minneapolis and came for supper, and we all went to his concert. And in the middle of it, I started getting like haziness of my eyes. I started getting short of breath, and I was positive I was having a heart attack. And so my husband took me to the ER while my sister-in-law took care of the boys and got them home. And when I got to the ER, my cardiogram was normal. My heart rate was up because I was nervous. And to make a long story short, I ended up with an anxiety disorder. I went into treatment at the Generos. Best program ever. I would say without that, I wouldn't be doing as well as I am now because I hardly ever deal with anxiety anymore. So, and what was interesting about that is it just came on like that. I had no idea it would be something that would happen to me. There is also social avoidance or social anxiety, where people have fear of certain embarrassing situations. And then there's obsessive compulsive. I know some of you probably have watched Monk, where, he has to wipe off the handles of the doors and he's cautious with everything. And usually there is a compulsion along with the obsession. If left unchecked, anxiety can worsen a person's overall health conditions. Now, there is one other type that I didn't put on there because this sheet, this slide kind of does a nice job of showing you all of them, and that's post-traumatic stress disorder. And we're hearing so much about that with the veterans who are home, and they have many negative thoughts about themselves or others. They feel hopeless about their future. They have difficulty maintaining or regrouping into relationships, and they feel emotionally numb. So I don't know what your church is doing for the veterans who are coming back or the servicemen, but I think it is something that each church needs to look at. What are we doing to support them and their family? Kathy, is your church currently doing anything for the veterans who've come home?
That's a good question. I guess the bigger question is, I don't know right now who we have within our congregation. I know we've had some young people in the past. Does anybody have a response to that? Do you know of anybody in our congregation? I just don't know that we have anybody right now that's just actively returned, Barb.
And
Check
even
in. Point.
thinking about veterans from the Vietnam War and, what trauma they went through when they came home, it's like, it might be a good survey to find out if they were in the service, which branch, how long they were in, and is there anything that they would want to share about how they're doing? Could be short and sweet.
Great idea. Yeah. I'll
Well,
report,
go ahead, Kath.
I'll report back.
Yeah.
I'll report,
So again, symptoms of anxiety, excessive fear and worry, uncontrolled or unwanted thoughts, sudden waves of terror, nightmares, ritualistic behavior, pounding heart, cold and sweating hands, dizziness, and nausea. So we do have a friend who can help us. What a friend we have in Jesus. Do you remember that song?
Yeah.
I learned it when I was in grade school. What a friend we have in Jesus, all our sins and griefs to bear. What a privilege to carry everything to God in prayer. Oh, what peace we often forfeit. Oh, what needless pain we bear. All because we do not carry everything to God in prayer. Why don't you read the next verse with me? Have we trials and temptation? Is there trouble anywhere? We should never be discouraged. Take it to the Lord in prayer. Can we find a friend so faithful who will all our sorrows share? Jesus knows our every weakness. Take it to the Lord in prayer. And then I'll read the last verse. Are we weak and heavy laden, cumbered with a load of care? Precious Savior, still our refuge. Take it to the Lord in prayer. Do thy friends despise, forsake thee? Take it to the Lord in prayer. In his arms he'll take and shield you. Thou will find a solace there. For some reason, I think these words have a different meaning for me in my 70s than they did when I was 12. Well, for some of us, we may be able to identify what are some of our triggers for anxiety. And you would think a big one for a lot of people is presenting. So if you've been over to Sebens, there's that big auditorium where 240 people can get in there. Well, I've had the privilege to speak there, and that doesn't bother me at all. Matter of fact, one of the last times I was there, I had my screens up, my slides up, and I couldn't find my glasses. And I said to the audience, just give me a second here, I have to find my glasses. And they all started laughing. They're on the top of your head. Now, if you can make a fool of yourself like that in front of 240 people, it was just a joke. But you know what? One of my triggers is illness. Being a nurse, I always can go a little bit farther with what does this symptom mean? And I can get into a place of anxiety thinking, oh, this is this. So I did have some anxiety last fall when I was in the process of trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And again, it was related to my fear of illness. Do any of you have anything on that list that might be a trigger for you? Kath, can you facilitate it?
Yeah, well, it's really small print, so I'm just gonna stand up and read a few of them. Large crowds, work situations, abusive situation, fear of failure. Poor performance, initiating conversation, being in charge of something, starting a conversation, mistakes, home life, thoughts of the future, small spaces, accidents, trauma, roller coasters, heights, maintaining a good conversation. First, it's initiating one, then maintaining one. Thinking about the past, crisis in the past, illness, sleep, trying new things, meeting new people, confrontations with people, finances, family issues, forgetting, fear of being alone, fear of not being accepted, and just acceptance itself, fear of dying, and fear of animals. And some of then Barb's got questions here. I'll just read them quickly and then we can maybe have some discussion. What are the 3 biggest or most frequent triggers for your anxiety? Well, that's a big one. What makes us most anxious? Why do these triggers cause us to be anxious? Is it an experience from our past, or what is it that makes that an issue for us? And what was the last time each trigger affected you? And what are your current coping strategies to manage the triggers for anxiety?
And we'll
Are
be
they?
getting into those triggers a
Yeah,
little,
yeah,
those coping skills a
yeah,
little more.
yeah.
Does anyone want to share? Any of you fearful of snakes?
Pastor just preached about snakes yesterday.
Uh,
Snakes, scorpions. Yeah.
so what effect does this anxiety have on you? It can cause you to have memory issues. You can't hold on to facts, or you might overthink, or you might avoid something. You can sweat. You might have stomach issues, panic attacks. You may need a lot of reassurance. You may lack patience. You may procrastinate, constantly worry, trouble breathing, headaches, rapid heartbeat. You know, thank goodness I didn't have my Fitbit
Yeah.
wristwatch, because one of the things I used to do was check my heart rate all the time to make sure how fast it was and what made it go down and what goes up. And now I just look at my watch and I go, oh, 100. Why? Why is it 100? And then I go, oh, deep breathe. But anyway, so that idea, you can really fixate on something. Insomnia is a hard one, because once you start having trouble sleeping at night, you have to be careful what you say to yourself when you're going to bed. Oh, is this going to be another night where I'm not going to be able to sleep? And so I get in bed and I do my deep breathing. I breathe in blessings and I breathe out stress. And I have to tell you,
Excuse
it
me, I'm so
helps.
sorry. I've got to share this before I forget it, because I'll forget it. Yesterday, doing blood pressures, 3 people came in. You know, we do pressures each Sunday. 3 people came in with high blood pressure. And by just sitting with their feet flat on the floor and we did the 3 deep breaths, it came down 30 millimeters in like less than 5 minutes. And it's just so significant and it's so easy to do and we just don't think of it.
Yeah, it's the best thing you can do. Thanks, Kath. Well, there's another way to help. Like if you're starting to feel a little tense and you're wondering, oh, what should I do to prevent like an anxiety attack? Well, of course, you'd start your deep breathing and then you'd focus on 5 things you can see. I'll look out my window and I'll see my birdhouses and I'll see my neighbor and I'll think of Jim and Judy. And so I do 5 things I can see, and then 5 things I can touch. And then 4 things that I can touch, 3 things that I can hear, 2 things I can smell, and 1 emotion you can feel. This is called grounding. And I'd encourage you, I think, Kathy, you got this for a handout, right?
I don't have that one, but I'll make sure they get it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is really a good one. And this is one you'd want to pass on. A lot of parents are going through a lot with their kids. And if they can just slow things down a bit by deep breathing and doing the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it can make a better day for them. Well, how do we alleviate anxiety if we think we've got it or we're just really stressed? Well, we need to find ways to relax our body. We need to prioritize our sleep. I have a new thing which has really been interesting. I have Alexa in my bedroom, and I have her play instrumental hymns. Now, this is fascinating to me. Okay, so I'm a little over 70, and many of those hymns they used to sing at my church growing up, and almost for all of them, I can sing the first verse.
Yep.
And I lay in bed and, oh, blessed assurance.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, I know that one. And so I lay there and I just feel surrounded by the beauty of the words in these songs. And now I'm challenged. I don't want to look them up, but eventually on some the songs I can hum the tune and I can't think of the title. But that is one of the ways I do to put music on to help soothe my mood. I try to focus, stay in the present, to use positive self-talk, to stay connected with others, write down my thoughts or feelings, reduce caffeine. I basically, since I've been going through treatment with chemo, I don't drink caffeine. I didn't have to. I chose to give up coffee. I didn't want to put anything in my body that would cause me to feel stressed. But did you know chocolate has caffeine in it? You know what I didn't give up? I didn't give up chocolate. No, I didn't. So I think gave up coffee. That's a big one. And if I go out to breakfast or something with my friends, I will have an iced tea, and that tastes wonderful. Except that you're feeling anxious. Oh, there's that anxiety again. Oh, what are you doing here? I'm really tired of you coming back. Do something you enjoy to take your mind off of it. Remember that your mind can play lots of tricks on you. Again, there it is. Focus on your breathing. Observe your feelings and thoughts without judgment. Cuddle with something or something. Kathy knows about this. In our support group, our grief support group, most of my groups have been women, and they're used to having somebody to cuddle with at night. And so I found this online. It's a frog, and frog stands forever relying on God. And so each of the women in support groups have gotten a frog. Many of them have named them, and they brought them to each support group. And this is fascinating to me. Friday, I was in for chemo. I'm sitting in the lobby, just had my blood work. And this woman comes up to me, and here it's Sister Linda Weiser from Assisi Heights, who's a friend. And she has another sister with her who's going through treatment for breast cancer. And I've heard about her from several people at Assisi Heights. Her name is Sister Joyce. So we chatted a little bit. We talked about mutual friends. And later, Linda came into my cubicle when I was getting chemo, and I always bring my frog with me to my chemo treatments. And I said to Linda, do you think Sister Joyce would like a frog if we're ever really relying on God? She said, oh, Barbara, you don't have to give up your frog. I said, just let me tell you, I have a basket full of them. I gave my frog a hug and said, you have a new friend. Her name is Joyce. And next thing I know, they posted on Facebook, Sister Joyce in her chemo chair holding on to her frog. So, I think frogs are a wonderful thing to give our kids if they're dealing with anxiety, forever relying on God. And so I buy mine on Amazon, and I haven't found a good place to get them within town, but they're nice and soft and cuddly. And some nights when I'm just close to the edge and I'm doing my breathing, I call mine Barney. Yeah, I pull him in and I snuggle with him until I'm feeling calm. Well, there are affirmations for anxiety also, things that you repeat to yourself, like I have total control over my head. What I'm feeling is normal. It's a human emotion and it will pass. I have the courage to say no to my anxiety. What I'm experiencing is only temporary. My anxiety does not define me. This is not an emergency, Barb. It's okay to take my time to get it resolved. My disproportionate bodily response to stress is not my fault. I will not beat myself up for feeling this way. And sometimes when I first started dealing with anxiety, I thought, what did I do wrong today? And then I said, why are you making it that you did something wrong? It just is. So think about how you talk to yourself if you're someone who's dealing with anxiety. Well, how do we treat anxiety? There's two main types of treatment, and one is medications, and the other is psychological counseling. Matter of fact, you could say there's three main things, because it's like one of those little milking stools with the three legs. So one is your medication, one is talking to someone, and third is getting out and walking, getting some exercise. And really, depending on the severity of your symptoms, counseling can be used alone or in combination with medications. And make sure that who you're meeting with is tailoring your treatment based on your needs, not just a template. Non-conventional therapies is something that I've grown up in the nursing field, and so relaxation techniques, massage, acupuncture, acupressure. Lavender is a wonderful, wonderful essential oil for anxiety, and you can find it over at Hunt Drug. They have little bottles of it. Meditation and music therapy. I'm really excited. We finally found a music therapist. My husband has Parkinson's, and I helped get the speakers. And we have wanted to do something on music therapy for a couple years and couldn't find anyone. And finally, we found a young woman who's coming on March 21st to talk about music therapy and wellness. And I'm just so excited to have her come because, as you know, the majority of the people with Parkinson's are men. And so, but at any given point, we've had up to 10 or 12 women with Parkinson's in our support group. So I'm excited to see what Brianna will bring to us as far as music therapy. There are a lot of medications. My intent is not to go into meds. I'm not a pharmacist, and so there's different categories, and whether you see a primary care physician or you actually see a psychiatrist, the psychiatrist would actually diagnose the type of medication that would be best for you. Okay, let's take a couple deep breaths here. Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. For those of you who are married, how do you talk about supporting each other when you're stressed? Or how do you support your school-age kids when they're stressed? Do you say a prayer with them before they go off to school? Or do you send them a note? I send my oldest granddaughter from town a note when it's time to go to bed. And I'll just love her up, and then I'll say, I'm praying for you, praying that your test will go well tomorrow, that you'll concentrate. So they know I'm praying for them all the time. And I think it's important that we as adults role model that to our kids, our grandkids, cousins, nieces, and nephews. So there are a lot of techniques to manage anxiety, and the one that we practiced a little while ago is breathing. It can help calm you down. It can reduce stress. It relaxes the body. It lowers your blood pressure, as Kathy said. And when you need to do it is when you feel upset or you're stressed, or just throughout the day. Sometimes when I'm in traffic, I'll just go, oh, I'm sitting here at a light. I think I'll do some deep breathing. Well, one of the things Max shares with us is this word calm. And what you need to do is write down the CALM acronym and place it somewhere accessible to remind yourself that the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and mind. So the C stands for celebrate God's goodness. Rejoice in the Lord always. How will you expect your joys to God's goodness today? So as you're having your devotion or you're sitting by yourself, start thinking about thanking God for all the goodness you have. Ask God for help where you need it. Let your requests be made known to God. If you don't already keep a prayer journal, start one and begin with today's requests. Leave your concerns with Him. With thanksgiving, at bedtime, review the concerns you left with God that morning and thank Him for relieving you of your anxious thoughts. And then meditate on good things. Think about the things that are good and worthy of praise. Plan your day to include time alone with God. So, this whole idea of calm, how do you bring calm into your life? How do you need some calm in your life? If so, you're not alone. The Bible is Kindle's most highlighted book, and Philippians 4 is the most highlighted passage. So we know that God is our helper, and when God is your helper, you will sleep better tonight and smile more tomorrow. There is work you can do to help relieve your anxiety. We've talked about breathing techniques. We've talked about the calm methods. For some, you need to ask God to lead you to a qualified therapist. And there is, you can go on Google and look up Christian counselors to look for one, and it shows you their pictures, a description of them, where their office is, and what their probably main focus areas. It is not God's will that you lead a life of perpetual anxiety. It is not His will that you face every day with dread and trepidation. He made you for more than anger and mind-splitting worry. He wants to have a new chapter for your life, a life that is filled with calm. So back to these, which I had not thought about this until I worked on this talk, and it just has been a good review for me. Anxiety and fear are cousins, but they're not twins. Fear sees a threat. Anxiety imagines ones. The presence of anxiety is unavoidable, but the prison of anxiety is optional. So how do I let God take care of my anxiety? Every day you can offer up your worries to God in prayer, hand them over to Him, and trust Him to take care of those matters. Do this as many times as needed to surrender to God, and you'll experience God's perfect peace. Stay in the present moment. Hebrews 13:6 says, so we can confidently say, the Lord is my helper. I will not fear. What can man do to me? And then Joshua 1:9. Have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous? Do not be frightened and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. So I'm going to say this prayer, and you can just fold your hand. What, Kath?
No, I didn't say,
I'm going to do a prayer now. Dear Lord, I thank you that I can come to you always for any reason. I'm grateful that when I pray to you, you answer me. Help me to come to you at the beginning of my fears and anxieties instead of waiting until I can't stand them anymore. The quicker I come to you, the better I feel. You want to free me from all my fears. Help me to look to you for help more often so that I can radiate with you your joy. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
yeah.
So one of the handouts I have for you is a worry diary. And this is something that can be helpful because you may see some trends. So on the diary, I think Kathy has these for you, right?
Yep, they have them.
Okay. There's a
Yeah,
place for that date and time and the situation. What are you worrying about? And then they always like you to rate, just like you rate your pain, they want you to rate your anxiety from 0, which is none, to 10, extreme. And then just keep track of that. And you may see that, boy, if you don't eat breakfast in the morning and you're rushing out of the house, you seem to have more stress and seem a little anxious versus having breakfast. Did I have coffee or not coffee? So this can be very helpful. And if any of your kids are dealing or grandkids are dealing with worry, this would be a way for you to see kind of some trends in their lives also. So what is causing you the most anxiety today? Describe the situation, how it's making you feel. What are your thoughts about it? How is it affecting your everyday life? And then rate it on a scale of 0 to 10. So now I would like to screen share where we can kind of talk about, are there things that we can be doing at our church for our parishioners regarding anxiety and depression? And how do I do this?
Just hit stop share, it's red.
Okay, there we go. So you are the best group to identify, are the things we should be doing at our churches to deal with anxiety and depression in our teens. For many of us, that would be our grandkids or our kids. For ourselves as women or men. And also, I guess I ask you the question, how often do you pray for the pastor and the team at church? And they need it every day, not just once a week when they're on your list. So, and sometimes I'll write a note to Pastor David and I'll say, what do you need me to pray for you this week? And he'll actually give me a couple things. So when we look at dealing with anxiety and depression and who in our church needs support, of course, it would be our leadership team. Well, how about the people who provide music, who lift our spirits on Sunday through instruments or their voice? Yeah. Who else at your church? The Sunday school teachers. Because they're working with our kids every Sunday and they're seeing their behavior. And maybe they haven't shared something with you about your child or grandchild that would be important to know. So maybe you have to reach out to them. How about your good friends? Do you know anybody who's dealing with anxiety? And they call it stress, because that's the acceptable word. I have a lot of stress today. Oh, what's it about? Oh, it's just stress. Well, now you can say, well, you might want to write this down so you can kind of track what's going on. There's a great book, Be Anxious for Nothing. Actually, I got another new book that I want to show you, and it is on my bibliography. It's called Biblical Journaling for Anxiety.
Oh.
It's the second book. It's by Julie K. Harbour, and I'll just tell you an example. So she has a Bible verse. Have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous? Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord with your God will be with you wherever you go. Joshua 1:9. And then she has a breath prayer. Inhale through your nose. I won't be afraid, or I won't be discouraged. Exhale through your mouth. God will be with me wherever I go. And then she has some journaling things that you can do for that Bible verse. And for those who like to doodle or color, she has a place where you can color. Coloring is a big thing in the arena for women and stress management. Wherever you go, you can find lots of coloring books. And actually, I'm going to be finishing up the Fruits of the Spirit small group on gentleness, goodness, long suffering, and then I'm going to do gratitude because they have to come. And we are going to color at each of those. The speaker will pick out a handout on goodness, and they're each going to get colored pencils. And then one of the women in our group is in the choir, and she's going to pick some music for us to listen to related to that word. So I'm trying to bring in more of the aesthetics into dealing with taking care of ourselves as Christian women. Any other things you can think about? Is there anything in your women's bathroom or men's bathroom that is a resource about stress or anxiety, depression? Start looking around your church. Do you have resources related to it? You know, one of the things, I'm in charge of the care notes. They look like this. Kathy, you have them, don't you?
But we need to expand on them.
Huh?
Yes, we do, but we need to expand on them. We've had little spindles out in the fellowship hall. I was just looking this week. And you know
Yes.
what, Barb? The youth, and I'm not sure what grade, some of you can help me. The youth in the church are writing scriptural messages and putting them all over, in the bathrooms, on the stall doors, on the windows next to the doors as you enter different classrooms. It's really great. And
Oh,
they've been
no.
doing that. Anybody know they've been doing that probably for 6 months, but you'll find scriptural messages all over, so. Yeah.
Hold on to it. If you find it, it's probably special for you.
Mhm.
So this one is on overcoming everyday anxiety. And I would think, Kath, if you don't have it currently for your church, you should probably order some. They come in packets of 25. Looks like it's warm in your room.
We could, you know what? Thanks for saying that. I'll open the door. I don't think.
Yeah, I'm going, where's my fan?
Yeah.
Was there anything else you want to share? Anything about anxiety, depression, stresses? What you do to take care of yourself? Any suggestions for all of us? What we can do for our church, our leadership?
I don't know if there's anybody here that's come from another church. You know, we have gotten some new members from Christ Lutheran in the last year. Their church closed and many of them have joined us. But it's interesting to see what other churches do. But, you know, I guess my biggest question for parishioners is, you know, if people feel like they can talk to someone within the church about anxiety. You know, you're right. It's easier to say you're stressed. And I always tell people it's a strength to admit we need help. I mean, we all need help at some time, but I always say it's a strength to ask for help. It's not a weakness. And yeah, that's important, I think, in a family of believers, as we call ourselves, to know there's somebody you can talk to.
Yeah. Anything else?
Usually we have good discussion. We can, you can see all of us on the screen. Sid, is there any way to put more people in the periphery? I guess it doesn't matter. They're black boxes, as long as they can see everybody, but I know there's other people on we could call on people. That's not fair, I know, but.
No, I would never do that, Kathy.
Yeah, I know, you would never do
And
it.
other than you.
But it's great. It's great that we have some parents with their adult kids joining tonight, which is great. You know, I shouldn't pick people out, but the Schultz family, Katie's here, but 2 of their college kids are, you know, in the periphery there somewhere. And the Gherking's daughter, one of their daughters is here, and we just need to get the word out more so people know that it's okay to ask for help, because Lord knows it's a stressful world.
Yeah, and I think as you look at teenagers, I know my granddaughter has had quite a few friends who've had breakups with boyfriends and issues at home, and they call her. And I just say to Haley, remember, you're not a counselor, you're a friend. And, you know, you might suggest that they tell their mom that they need somebody to talk to. So we have to be careful that our teens don't help keep the secret, you know, that I've got really severe anxiety and I don't want anybody to know but you. Will you promise not to tell anybody? Yeah.
Mark,
It's a tough one.
somebody had a comment. Katie's got one. Can you see everybody here in this
Yeah,
room,
go ahead.
Barb?
You raised your hand.
I'm gonna say, I think sometimes with young people, they don't know that what they're experiencing is anxiety.
That's a good point.
They don't understand what it is. They just think there's something wrong with them.
Yeah.
And and your example, Barb, is such a profound one, because you know, you really have a handle on who you are and what you're about. And the way that anxiety hit you, just out of the clear blue, you just had no clue that that was sneaking up on you. And I think that's just a profound example of how it can affect us. And it's so subtle, we don't even know, like you said, that it's coming
Yeah,
on.
I was gonna say, the first time I dealt with anxiety, I woke up in the middle of the night
Mhm.
having a panic attack, and I didn't even know what it was, and I was just like, what do you mean? Like, I'm fine,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong. So I think that's the hard thing too, is you don't always know what's causing it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Lori's got a question.
So everybody experiences anxiety. So I guess my question is, how do you know you gotten to a point where you were waking up in the middle of the night versus just
Every day.
I mean, we're not gonna, is that even, yeah, I don't know.
When it really is, can you hear what she's saying? When I think what you're saying is, when do we know that it's significant? It kind of creeps up on us and we know it's there. And when is it at a point where we should maybe ask for help or?
Yeah, because everybody deals with it. I mean,
Exactly,
You're not gonna
exactly.
get out.
You're not gonna get out of
whack
this life without being
without-
anxious.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The difference between anxiety as an emotion versus something like generalized anxiety disorder.
Mhm. So, how do we identify? I mean, post-traumatic stress for a lot of people is pretty blatant, although I think there's a lot of people that have post-traumatic stress in their life too, that have no clue that's what it is, like you said. But like Sid said, how do you differentiate between just sort of a subtle anxiety that keeps you on edge during the day, or is it generalized and do we need more attention for it?
I would just have you kind of rephrase. There's no little generalized anxiety. It's not just if you have it, it's not just a little anxiety or a big anxiety. It's anxiety. And if you don't snip it in the bud early on, it can become more significant and it can lead to a panic disorder. So the idea is if you're noticing symptoms of anxiety and they're happening maybe three nights a week, then the question you ask yourself is, do I want to go the route of going on medications for this, or do I want to use integrative therapies? So the idea is if you want to use integrative therapies, then maybe you look for a Christian counselor and you do the non-medication format, try that out, and then talk with that person about, do you feel I should maybe see my physician and get on medication? Because as you know, all drugs have side effects. And so, I mean, I was on meds for a long time for anxiety, and I have to say I'm not now. And I was happy for them when I got them, but I know more about integrative therapies now than I did back then, so that I can pick and choose other things that'll help me. Getting off caffeine was a big one for me. I drank a lot of coffee. I was busy at work, so I didn't exercise much. So getting out and getting the anxiety out of your system is a good thing.
So I have a.
Yeah, go
comment.
ahead, Bobby.
Some years ago, a group of us were exposed to a wonderful study. It went on beyond 8 weeks, but it was a textbook approach to contemplative prayer, including the Jesus prayer, Saint Ignatius prayer, the Serenity prayer being one, but the focus was to eliminate everything, and actually everything that would be a stimulus and reside without falling asleep for at least working up to 20 minutes in a relationship with God in prayer. And it was a very difficult pathway, but many of us found that we were practicing an approach which did yield 20 minutes of pure time with God. Not meditation, but a conscious relationship with God in prayer.
Oh, that's
And-
beautiful.
It was an amazing textbook. I shared it with a friend who expressed a need for it, and she's had it for a year and a half or so. We have not come back together, but listening to you tonight, Barb, I feel you are a catalyst to reach out to this woman to find out if we could even incorporate others into a group of study.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to thank each of you for coming, because each of you will pass something on from this to 3-5 people, and pretty soon we'll scatter kindness and get rid of anxiety in Rochester. So you keep scattering good things.
Rochester will be anxiety, less, huh? One thing the one thing too, though, is so many people that are anxious feel alone. And if we can just spread the word about, please talk to somebody else, approach somebody you can trust. It's important to talk to someone you can trust. You just don't pick somebody out. But for people to know, like Lori said, it is a normal part of life, and to reach out.
I think even if you're not specifically talking about anxiety, I really think we need each other. We need to reach out, find a friend or 2 or 7 or 20 that can be somebody that's really valuable in your life. Because if you're alone a lot, I think that's when the dangers are. You
Yeah.
start thinking,
You're right, Joe.
and it's worrisome.
Yeah, the homebound are really in a vulnerable place because of less activity to distract them, more time to vegetate on how they're feeling, and no one to really share it with. So, you might look at in our bulletin, we have a list of homebound, and pick someone, send them a card, tell them you're praying for them, send them a gift card for Flapdoodles or the Dairy Queen off of 41st Street opened on March 1st. Yes, it did. It's very good. They haven't lost their knack. And if you've not had a manwich, you're going to have to try a manwich along with your Dairy Queen, and get a box of dillies, of course. So when friends come over, you can have them have dilly time with you. And so
That's one thing, a Redeemer, Barb, I think we're so blessed. There are so many people in our congregation that reach out to the homebound. I mean, we just don't know of all of them. And now with Easter approaching, to the Project Compassion group delivers, Easter lilies, but there are so many people within our church that reach out individually, and I wish we could capture that, because you'd be just amazed. But we still need to do more because there's so many.
yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I see the time, Kath, and I don't want to go over. So
Well, how about anybody in the periphery out there? We've got some people that usually have pretty provocative questions. Anybody have a question for Barb? You're all lighting up a little more now.
yeah, they know I don't know what provocative means.
We always have to, anybody before I can't tell you how much we appreciate this. And
Yes.
it's just remarkable, Barb, your role modeling and your deep faith and the way you share it in so many wonderful ways.
Well, just know, seeing each of you there is inspirational for me, and hopefully you're not judging me for no hair. Can't do anything about it. I have a wig, don't like it. So anyway, just put me on your prayer chain that I have scans again on March 20th, and I'm praying that all of my nodes and my pancreas cancer has shrunk some more. My granddaughter is graduating from high school on June 1st, and that has been my goal, that I would have quality life and be able to be at her graduation. And so far, God has been wonderful, because one of the questions they ask me every week is, do you have pain? And I say, no. You sure? I said, I know what pain is. So God is watching over me. I have such a sense of calm when I go into the chemo suite. I say, God, make sure they get me first stick. I get stuck once for my labs and once for my chemo. And then I visit with everybody I know there, because a lot of them came from the hospital, so.
We worked with them and
Yeah,
Yeah.
and just know Nurses Week is coming up in May, so, don't forget them. They need to be loved too. So thank you so much. It has been my
Oh.
blessing.
And before we quit, we're gonna say the Lord's Prayer. The next
Yeah.
meeting is April 8th, is the second Monday in April. And I think we may have someone on dementia. A gal from, I have to see if that date's gonna work for her, but a gal who spoke to our congregation on visiting angels in November, also is certified as a dementia counselor. And we've got so many wonderful topics that have been suggested, so I think we'll have a full year, but it's been wonderful to have you, and we'll just repeat the Lord's Prayer. And with that, we're including for great scans in March, and thank you so much again.
Yep.
So should we all say the Lord's Prayer together, please? Our Father, who art in heaven,
Hallowed be thy name.
thy
Thy
kingdom
come.
come,
Thy will be done
earth as
on
it is
earth as in heaven.
this
Give
day.
us
Our
today our daily bread.
Forgive us
us
our
our trespasses, as we
As we
forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever.
Amen.
Thank you, everybody. Blessings to everyone. Stay safe and healthy. And
Thanks for
we'll
coming out.
see
Have
you.
a blessed week. Bye.
Thank you, Barb.
Thanks, Barb. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Barb. Bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you all for joining. Raleigh and Ann, you look really comfy in your living room.
Thank you too.
Oh, yep. Please keep Barb in your prayers as you say them, and I'm just trying to.